Alright, what's going on, you guys? So in this video today, I wanted to give you guys some tips on getting great adhesion with a trad vane and carbon, because in previous videos I've gotten a lot of comments on just bad adhesion and having a really tough time getting getting those trad vanes the AAE makes to stick to the carbon on your arrow. And this has just been my experience, so hopefully it helps you next time you go to fletch up a dozen arrows or half a dozen arrows or whatnot. I really haven't had that issue. I've actually, I'll give you an example right here. I've actually had a lot of success with these vanes. And just so you understand my setup, what I'm running, and I have another video on the perfect trad arrow build. This is a Rampage Black Eagle 400 spine. And as you guys can see, like, this arrow has been shot a lot, and I do have a tear in this vane, but I don't have any problem with the actual vane coming off the carbon. So that wasn't the issue. I just had a little tear in the vane itself. So I'll just strip this vane off, and then I'll just put another vane on, and I'm still solid. But a lot of guys, what they have issues with is the actual vane adhering to the carbon, or just getting a good, strong fit from the whole entire seat of the vane. So in today's video, again, I'm going to be fletching up a few of these for you. I've already fletched up one just so you guys can see it. This was from a last arrow build. I'm going to be doing this exact same fletch configuration, which this is the 3-inch trad vane from AAE in a 4-fletch configuration on the Rampage Black Eagle 400 spine arrows with a right helical. And if you guys haven't already seen the other video, you want to talk about a perfect arrow build for a trad bow, this arrow and this configuration has been fire. The quick facts on this arrow, I have found that the outsert collar, the 50 grain outsert collar with the 125 grain point, and the 50 grain point weight insert, so you can actually run the point weight through the back. There's a tool that's super long, and you could screw it in so you get the full 100 grain point weight. So I run 100 grain essentially insert and insert weight, total weight 100 grains, and then I run 125 grain point. So I'm looking at 225 grain point weight, and this arrow flies wicked. And I've been shooting the QAD Exodus. That broadhead has been an awesome flying broadhead with this setup, and I'll put in some B-roll of these arrows just flinging them down range. But let's get into this and show you guys what I'm doing. Again, this is just what I found has worked for me. So I'm using the Blitzenberger. I can't speak for other tools. I've tried a standard, like the Mini Max. This is a left helical. I've tried like standard fletching tools. Just haven't had the greatest success with these, so I don't even bug around with these, even though they're quicker and some guys have them dialed. I like to use the Blitzenberger. I have both the straight tool, the left tool, and then the right tool. All my recurves, I have a right twist coming out of my bow. And I found that all my compound bows, I have a left twist coming out of my bow. So, with that being said, in today's video, I'm going to be using the right twists. And if you guys haven't already seen, inside of the Blitzenberger tool, you have the adjustment, right? You have the adjustment to change, let me get this totally perfect for you guys, to change the pitch of the actual fletching tool so it meets your carbon, right? And I've already got that set up, but I'd say this is probably one of the most important parts to actually getting good adhesion with your vane to the carbon of the arrow, is making sure that this tool is set up perfectly. And what I've found, and I must say, this works great with the right helical tool, right? The right helical, I don't even know what they call this, just the clamp. The right helical clamp, I can get perfect adhesion with this. Now, I haven't even tried it with the straight, and I've tried it with the left, but again, because I shoot my compounds, they shoot left. Again, that's totally different topic. My right, or my recurves, they're shooting right, they're clocking right. I always put a right Fletch on there, and these things are fast, they're bullets. So again, this has worked really good for me. Now, let's get into this, and I'm going to show you what I do and the tools that I've found to work the best. I've tried the tack glue. I've tried a handful of other glues, just so you guys do know and you are aware. I've tried a lot of different stuff. I've even tried using the primer pens, all different type brands primer pens. But what I found to work the best is just the AAE Max Bond. So this is the AAE Max Bond. Let me get that perfect for you guys. Adhesion, maximum strength vane adhesion. And it works great. I use this stuff, doesn't matter if I'm running tack vanes, doesn't matter if I'm building AAE vanes or QI2 vanes, doesn't matter what I'm building. This is the go-to glue that I've used. I've had great success with it. I like the bottle that it comes in. It has a little tiny needle in the end of the cap, which, if you guys know, that's a pain in the butt because these tips always get clogged up. So you never have to worry about that with this bottle. So that's another reason why I like it. But the glue itself, right, if it didn't have that, I'd still buy this glue because I've had the best success with this glue. And then what I do, because this is a 4-fletch, I've got the jig set up in a 4-fletch. I mean, you have the marks on your actual clamp, which I'll show you here in a second and zoom in. You have the marks on your clamp so you can adjust what distance you want your vane to be on your arrow. And what I mean by that here is the distance from the back of the nock, right, into carbon, what distance you want this vane to sit on your arrow. So some people, if they have beards, they like to run their fletchings up a little bit higher, a little bit further. And then some people like to run them really close to the nock, depending on the way that they shoot. And it's all preference. But for me, I've found it to work best. And again, I've actually played around with this. I found that I get the best arrow flight for my draw length, which is like 26 inches on a recurve. Just with the standard first set point, which, as you guys can see, is right there. So that's what I mean by that. You can level this up, and you can choose where you'd like your vane to be placed based on where that's at on your arrow. So I'll show you guys what it looks like. I'm going to fletch one. Now, again, going back to this, before you ever even put any glue on your fletching, you're going to want to make sure that this fletching seats perfectly on your arrow. And again, this is my luck, but as you guys can see, this is a tiny little surface area, right, to be gluing down to carbon, compared to, let me show you some other vanes. This is what I've been running. I'm going to try this, and I have a video coming out on these vanes here soon, comparatively to this base. And this is where people in the comments always go, well, these are so difficult to get adhered to my carbon. Look at the difference, right? That to that. It's tiny. I mean, that's just a tiny little ridge and rim to get to adhere to the carbon compared to that. That's easy and it's big. This one's can be difficult. So again, come to find out, if you have this seated perfectly, I mean perfectly, with your clamp to carbon before you ever even put your vane in to glue it, you're gonna do just fine. So I'm gonna show you guys what this looks like. I don't run a lot of glue. I just run a little bit of glue. But where you really want to make sure you get more glue than not is in the points, right? So from point 1, point 2, so call it front point, back point. Get a little bit more glue than expected in those areas, because if I've ever had an issue, and it might be like 1 in 5 arrows that I might have an issue, is it's the points of contact in the very front or the back that end up being a problem. So just make sure to get a little bit more glue right there, and if you do and you hold it down for 35-40 seconds, you're going to be totally fine. But I'm going to fletch one arrow up for you guys, and you're going to go along this with me. Not much. I don't really put too much glue. I just run dots, and then I run the tip of the glue all the way down, but the whole entire base has glue on it before I were to actually set it in the clamp, or set it in the arrow. So got my glue on my clamp, make sure that knock is in there perfect. I'm gonna run that down, boom, boom. And then what I like to do is, you can actually see, and I know right now it's gonna be difficult, but you guys can actually see in this next one, I'll zoom way in for you guys. I can't see any skylight between my carbon and my arrow, or my carbon arrow and my Fletch base. So that glue is pushing out and extruding from my vane. And what I like to do is I essentially just count to 35 and then I'll pull it off. So at 35, you know, that gives it enough adhesion to not come out with the clamp, but it also isn't enough to where the clamp gets stuck to the vane. So that's another thing, is just 35 seconds to 40 seconds tends to be enough to at least get you started. The longer you're willing to do it, like in an ideal situation, 45 seconds, 50 seconds, still allows you to pull this clamp off without the glue adhering to the clamp and the vane, which, you know, becomes a big issue, which I've done before. So I'd call that's probably right around that time frame. Pull it off. And then what I always do is I clean my clamp with my fingers. Some people use something besides their fingers, but that works for me. And then I'm going to run my next one. Same exact point. Run that in there. Make sure it's all sat in perfectly. That's another thing, is if this vane isn't perfect inside of the actual fletching clamp, then you're going to have issues. But let me see if I can't get you guys in here a little bit closer. I'm going to zoom you guys in here. Let me try to do this. I'm sorry that I'm not a perfectionist here with this. I'll push this back a little bit. Let me see if I can't do this perfectly for you guys. Alright, let me see. I can do it. It's just going to take me a second, so bear with me. Okay, so that should be pretty good there, I think. Yeah, that'll be good enough. Then I could just adjust this to here. So, right there. Now, I'm going to move on to my next clamp. So again, as you guys can see, here I am. Right, I'll get this focused in for you. I'm going to run my glue. Let me do it this way. I don't run too much glue, but if I'm going to add more glue, I'm going to add it onto the fronts and the backs of the vane. This is a tedious process too, like I must say. This is a very tedious process, and you've got to like doing this. If you don't, then you're going to get burnt out and you're not going to spend the time that's necessary. So as you can see, I squeeze that down. Let me get this back focused in for you guys. So I'm squeezing that down, specifically in the front, in the rear, holding it, you know, count in your head to, you know, 35, 40 seconds. And you'll notice, I'm going to try to zoom in even more for you guys here. Hold up. As you guys can see, I know it's really difficult, but there's no air, right? There's no space between that vane adhering to the carbon. It's just a perfect fit, and that's the key. You have a perfect fit vane, then you're going to be in the money, right? But if you don't have a perfect fit vane, then you're going to see that these are going to lift when you're shooting, and you're going to have problems, you know, with flight. So just get it perfect every time. Spend the time to make sure that the jig is set up correctly, and then the rest will just be easy. So that's about 35 seconds, 40 seconds. You're going to pull that thing off. You're going to give it a good wipe. and then you're going to move to your next vein. And one more thing that I always like to do, which I didn't do previously, is I take a Q-tip and I just run it down the lines, and that just makes it real clean, cleans it up, makes sure the glue's not all clumped up, evens everything out, and then I move to my next. And it's just a 1 over 1 over 1 over process that you just keep doing until you build your arrow the way you want it. And I must say, I've done this with the 4 Fletch as well, or I mean a 3 Fletch as well, with the same vein configuration. Flies awesome. Actually, maybe a titch quieter, if I must say, but the ability to get an arrow downrange at distance with the broadhead becomes a little bit flighty. So I stick to the 4 Fletch because it flies way better. It's a lot more accurate at distance with the broadhead, and the sound is not, you know, it's not over the top. It's nothing that I'm going to be like too worried about. That arrow is going to reach that animal before I ever even have to worry about, you know, the sound. Which at 100 yards with the compound is a different story. You know, you can, if you don't have a real good vein configuration, a deer will just duck that arrow. And you even see it on, you know, videos where people are shooting whitetails in their tree stands. Deer are smart when they hear stuff, man. They duck it, especially if they've been shot at for a long time. But again, this for me has been just a treat. Like, it took me a long time. I've tried a lot of different arrows, a lot of different configurations. This arrow build for me has been money. It is sick. It is awesome. It is the best build I've built yet. I'm not going to change anything up until someone convinces me otherwise. And another thing is that they're strong arrows. With that half outsert, and you know, you've got all that front weight. I still have the front weight that I'm running. Like, a lot of guys are, you know, 2, 3, even 400 grains up front, which is just, to me, excessive. 300 grains to me is just excessive. But 200, it seems to work really well. I've even gotten away with 150 grains up front and had some good success. But that's about 35 seconds. Pull that off, right? Make sure my glue is good. And you guys, as you can see, like, this process, if you've done it enough times, it goes pretty fast. And you're gonna see when I'm done with this that it adheres really well. And what I'm gonna do, just to make this simple, because I know you guys don't want to sit and watch me fletch a dozen arrows this painfully processed. It's just the same thing over and over and over. I'm going to show you guys my other arrows that I only fletched one up before recording this, just so we can look at a finished product. But it'll give you guys at least a good idea. This is how you do it. This is how I get my arrows on these trad veins to work perfectly. So my final fletching, put that in the jig, run it down, boop boop. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, you know, all the way to 35-40 seconds, and typically that's enough for us to be perfect. Once I get this one fletched, I'll go back through, run my Q-tip down the line, make sure the glue is all fixed, and you guys will see it turns out really, really good. So we're almost there. And I found too, if you don't at least hold this down on the front end, because again, your adhesion, typically it meets in the middle, but where people have issues is the very tip and the very back end of that fletching to carbon. So you really want to make sure that there's pressure on the top of this jig and the bottom of this clamp, so the top of the clamp, bottom of the clamp, to ensure that that is meeting and that glue has some time to adhere to the carbon and the vein. But again, really a simple process. Well, I mean, I haven't had any issues with it. I'm going to back you guys out and show you guys what I mean by this. I've had really great success with this, so let me get you guys set back up to a decent distance so you guys can see me again. So this is done. That's an arrow fletched. I always wipe my glue down. I'm going to pull this out here. I'm going to run my Q-tip down, and even doing this section, this little part right here, a lot of guys don't do this, and they leave everything real uneven. But this actually helps adhere the vein as well, right? Because you're adding glue to the whole outside edge of that vein. And then it looks sloppy right now, but when it dries, it's all crystal clear and perfect. And then sometimes, you know, I've done this in the past, it might be worth doing this. Essentially what you're gonna do is you're gonna go through and you're just gonna add a titch, if you need to, of glue on the backs. If you really wanna be crazy over the top about it, just run a titch, one little dot, like I'll do it right here, because that one wasn't perfect. Just one little dot of glue. It doesn't take but a second. One little dot of glue, one little dot of glue. And again, if you do this, this is that extra security, right? You're not gonna have any problems with these veins adhering and staying adhered. So, finished product, right? Let me see, I gotta get this perfect for you guys. There it is, perfect. And you guys, that's it. That's a perfect arrow built. That's how you get these trad veins to stick perfectly, you know? So when you do have the mishaps, you're not ripping the whole entire vein off. Like, this arrow has been shot hundreds of times, not exaggerating. And I got that one cut, but none of it came off the actual vein. Like, the vein didn't rip off, it adhered perfectly. So again, to run you through it, what are you gonna use? The AAE Max Bond Maximum Strength Vein Adhesion Glue. That stuff works amazing. Make sure that you have awesome adhesion or perfect alignment with your clamp and your vein on your carbon arrow, and you're holding it for 30 to 45 seconds. And if you do that, you're going to be in the money on these arrow builds. You're not going to have any problems with the veins coming up. I mean, it's already a painfully long, slow process. So if you have your veins constantly poking off, I mean, I could see how that would just be frustrating and you'd end up just not wanting to do it. So if you get the right, you know, right tools and the right material, you're gonna have great success with this. And I'll add, like I said, a little bit of B-roll footage in, possibly of me shooting. Not totally sure on that. If you guys haven't already, go check out some of my other videos. I did a video reviewing this arrow and showing you some of the other arrows that I've built. I really, really like this arrow, and I think that you guys, if you haven't really found the exact perfect arrow for your trad setup, go check this video out, because I think this arrow is an arrow that you want to explore and you want to build for yourself. It shoots amazing. So with that, you guys, peace out, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.